So the District of North Vancouver preserves a period of time of up to 30 minutes at the front end of each of our regular meetings of council for members of the public to come and raise concerns of interest to them. Each member or each person is permitted a period of up to 3 minutes to address council on topics of their choosing. We do give priority to people who are speaking on agenda items, but tonight I have 2 members of the public that have signed up to speak. Once those 2 members have spoken, we'll still have some time remaining, and if other people would like to add their comments, we'll create a space for that. At this time, I'd like to call up Peter Teven to speak, followed by Tina Ibrahimi. Mr. Teven, welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you.
Yes, that's...
Wrong one. Is that better? There we go.
There you go.
Thank you. Peter Tevan, 1900 Block, Indian River Crescent. Your Worship and Council, I'm speaking, just commenting really, not in favor or not against agenda item 8.9, the, I think it's 2050 to 2070 Marine Drive development proposal. I've got a little bit of data to show you visually, if you can turn on the overhead, please. And this is shown to you for the purposes of putting this in context, okay? What I've done is I have created a housing continuum report out of the data that was presented to you all on April 25th. I got very close. I couldn't reconcile the data. You see here at the bottom, it says 5,997 units versus 5,900. I came within 97 units. I couldn't find listings in the report for 97. But just in context for people who have never seen a housing continuum, on the left side, you see the different types of housing within our district. And you see here the heading that this is where we started our current official community plan in 2011. And what we intend to do is over here on the right side, 2030 units. This is the estimated demand, which was an increase of just over 10,000 net new units. And you can see here that with what is currently in process before council and approved, according to my math, we're approximately 9,500 units. If the bulk of everything that's considered by council is approved without huge changes. That's a big if. Just to fit it into context, right now, tonight's proposal 8.9, this is where it shows up in the housing continuum. And of course, the minute you address it as an agenda item, it will move from this column over into the first reading. And this was prepared as at the April 25th, before I knew this was coming up. So of 44 units, this is 41, which are, as you can see here, subsidized rentals. It's 77 out of 464 purpose-built rentals, and it's 212 out of the 363 market purchase condo apartments. So this is a sizable development. And I don't say that it should be built or it shouldn't. But really what I hope that people do is focus on the bigger picture and say, okay, well, how are we doing with respect to, you know, percent of our goals in each category of housing? Where are we lagging behind? And I'm not so sure that this proposal, and if you could put the projection back up, I've got some bullet points here. I think that when we look at what ought to drive decisions to move things from the left side being certain to the right side being more uncertain, I think these are some of the considerations. How much more housing do we actually need? Does the proposal at hand do enough of what we need? And how does it impact the neighborhood? And what about the infrastructure? Can it bear the additional density, or is it better dispersed to other places? So these are what I hope. Just in closing, I sent you all an email today because as a citizen, I have a concern that the 2 of the principals here donated to a political campaign. I believe that even though the law is unclear, that a recusal ought to happen. I'll put that in the black tray. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next speaker is Tina Ibrahimi. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Can I stand for this? Am I able to?
I want you as
You want me
close
to
to the
see?
microphone as possible,
Oh, of
actually. That's
course,
what we're
yeah.
trying to pick up right
Yes.
there. That's great. Thank you so
Let me
much.
move forward here. Alrighty.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the
Do I
council.
start now?
Yes, please.
Alrighty. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tina Ibrahimi. I am president of the council at a commercial building located in 2030 Marine Drive, sandwiched between two major developers, including Section 8.9, which one of the reasons I'm here to address is that. I'm here because of a restless amount of time of just trying to seek council and mayor's attention on our rights, our property rights continuing to be violated and somehow ignored. Section 31 of the Strata Property Act permits me to be here in order to protect the best interest of our Strata Corporation. 8.9, which is the proposal that Mr. Michael Geller will be, I guess, here curious about this evening. They have submitted a development proposal, and one of the biggest problems beyond all the stats that Peter just addressed was that the proposal includes blocking and trespassing on our easement and property rights. And this is a reminder to everybody that our easements are legal and binding, and we are not developing in the foreseeable future. Having said that, emergency and commercial vehicles need to be accessible to and from 2030 Marine Drive, which with this new proposal, that would not be viable. We've consulted more than a few experts on this. In addition to that, substantial damages could occur as a result of our commitment to the Strata Corporation. Therefore, we are against this proposal taking place. Topic number 2, which is general communication patterns with the DMV. After further amount of time, we think and are of the opinion that the style of the communication we've received from the DNV thus far is unfortunately that of avoidant and passive communication. They are all live to all the aspects and many, many matters surrounding 2030 Marine Drive, and as most recent as 3 hours ago, having their contractors perform work on our property without our permission. Lastly, we've been left with no choice but to follow up with initiating a lawsuit towards the developers who are to our right, part of the sandwich we are part of, because they have trespassed and built 2 illegal walls without permits on our property, without permission, without authorization, and they are continuing to squat on our property. In addition to that, last but not least, I'm still curious as to know why it is that mayor and council to this day are of the awareness that they should not be aware of what's going on, because it is my understanding that every single councillor and mayor in this room knows exactly what's going on, and they have plenty of documents to back it. But for the interest of those who may have not done their due diligence, I've left additional copies addressed to each councillor and mayor here, just in case you need to familiarize yourself. Lastly, naturally, if we continue on this track record, I'm here to bring attention to the citizens of District of North Vancouver so that these legitimate concerns don't fall as liabilities on the District of North Vancouver. Last but not least, my question remains. Today, elected officials, what are you going to do? Are you going to enforce the bylaws or continuing avoidance? Thank you.
Very much, and your materials will be circulated to the council.
And does that mean that you're not going to get back to me like you guys have for the past 11 months?
We've had regular communications between our lawyer and yourself.
5 months we've been waiting on PAR's response to our legitimate questions about addressing our property rights. And this is what's been happening, diplomatic procrastination at its best.
Okay.
Thank you. Diplomatic procrastination, that's all it is.
Thank you very much.
Next item, clerk, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, through your worship. Next item would be 8.9 bylaws 8573, 8574, 8575, 8576, and 8577, rezoning and housing agreements for mixed use development at 2050 to 2070 Marine Drive and an unaddressed lot. I would note that we do have a public input speaker, Michael Geller.
Mr. Geller.
Your worship, in absence, members of council here and on the screen, I'll be brief. You'll shortly be getting a comprehensive presentation from your staff. I have not prepared a PowerPoint presentation this time. You've had to sit through two already over the course of the last year and a half. But what I would like to do is briefly highlight the reasons why I'm hopeful that you will agree that this proposal should now go forward to public hearing. Before I do, though, I want to just recognize the efforts of staff who literally have worked day and night for many months to help bring the report before you and to bring this matter to your attention tonight. As I've sat in this council chamber and listened to you, one of the things I've heard is the need for broader housing choices in this development. When I started talking to the owner 8 years ago, it was assumed this would be 100% condominium, just like the development next door. Tonight, you have before you a project that has condominium housing, but with a variety of innovative programs. Lock-off suites that provide rental housing, or mortgage helpers in the sky, as one journalist dubbed them. We have rental housing. We have non-market rental housing. And indeed, even within the condominium segment, we have a variety of programs. Local first, so that people who live in the city and the district will have the first choice for 2 months before the units come to market. We're also working on an innovative rent-to-own program, which will provide a housing choice that has been proposed before, but which I think will help some people get into the market. The next thing which I think is essential is the Lionsgate Village has the potential to be a wonderful new neighborhood center in your district. But what it needs is the completion of the road, and it needs the completion of the park. And that's something that will happen with this development. In addition, there's a number of easements, there's rights of way, and as noted in your staff report, 44% of this 2.6 acre property, 44% will be publicly dedicated, including dedications along Marine Drive to allow for new landscaping, bicycle lane, improved rapid transit, and a variety of other easements throughout the site. I've heard many of you express concerns in the past about the scale of the development, the height of the building, the massiveness at the very top. As a result, design changes have been made. We changed the design of the street wall along the pedestrian street to bring down the scale and make it more friendly. We've enhanced the accessibility of both the overall site and the units so that anybody in a wheelchair will be able to get around the site, and in slightly more than the minimum number of units will be designed to maximize accessibility. For those of you who've been concerned about parking and traffic, and I think that's everybody watching us tonight and everybody who's paying attention, we have made a dramatic reduction in the number of parking spaces. This bylaw required 610 spaces. We're proposing.
If I can have you draw to a close, you're going to get a great opportunity at a public hearing potentially, but it's still just 3 minutes.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry.
There we go. Draw to a close.
Well, I hope that, as you'll see from the staff report, this will be truly a model sustainable development. It doesn't have a high-rise passive certified development, but it does have a passive house, non-market housing. Pace of development, I think that's no longer an issue. And I think it'll be a wonderful gateway into the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Josh. Okay. Yes, and as I said, when we move in a public hearing context, so this is first reading, this is just for council's consideration. If it moves beyond first reading, then it would be referred to a public meeting, and at a public meeting, the developer would have a more fulsome opportunity to go over all of the features with the public present for their consideration. But at this time, it's just in the initial considerations by the council, and I have raised my hand. I will be supporting issuing first reading and referring the matter to a public hearing, as the staff recommendation suggests. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Kern. Okay, yeah, so just my comments on the matter. We've already had a couple of discussions about the space, and well, I have had some overall general concerns about the redevelopment in the general neighborhood and the nature of it, some gaps that I think we're going to have in the long run. I don't entirely put them on the shoulders of this development to come up with solutions for all of the neighboring properties. However, this project has already been altered, I believe, to the benefit of the community in responding to many of the priorities set out by the council at our early input opportunities for this project. And so I do think that it warrants taking the matter to the public and seeing what the neighborhood has to say about this space. So I'm going to be supportive of first reading at this time. Councillor Kern is the seconder. Do you have any comments?
I just wanted to correct Mr. Geller when he said that it wasn't a passive, it was a social housing passive project, just so you know. But I do agree that this has progressed from where it started, and it does offer a diversity of housing. The 41 unit passive equivalent affordable or non-market units. I think if council can agree by looking at the rents that anyone would be thrilled to have a brand new 3-bedroom passive house in a town center for $1,725 a month. And there's actually 4 3-bedrooms proposed, which are really hard to find for families. So I think that this has a mix of housing. I would support no parking, but the developer has taken it from 600 to less than that. I mean, I think this is a place that as we transition away from a private ownership vehicle model, these places are great for expanding into other ways to move about. And I just wanted to clarify that I didn't see those first time, but that each building has green roofs, or maybe staff could clarify. Because I think in that area, can staff just clarify, do all buildings have green roofs?
Kevin Zhang, can you confirm?
Hi. Through your worship, 2 of the taller buildings have green roofs. The non-market rental building does not have a green roof.
Not yet, no. Yeah, but I think that green roofs are something that we need to be doing. They have multiple benefits in terms of biodiversity and also mitigating rainwater, and also helping with the heat island effect and keeping buildings cooler. And I was just at Lions Gate because we just opened our new rec center. And I agree, it's missing a park, and there should be another park soon enough, and also a coffee shop. And I would like to clarify, what's the size of the commercial unit that's being proposed?
Through your worship, the cafe is about 574 square feet.
Okay. So I think that was a place that I said we should have a food truck, a coffee truck here, because there wasn't anything in that area. But there's a big playground. There's people starting to move in, and yeah, I'm interested in hearing from the public, so I support this moving forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hanson, your comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I am not supportive of this proposal going to rezoning at this time. I do wish to thank the staff for all of their hard work in bringing this proposal to this stage. And I'd also like to acknowledge the efforts of the applicant to revise the proposal to meet the needs of our community. And I would not wish any of my comments to be taken as any type of criticism of the applicant nor their team. In my view, we must view proposals of this type through 3 lenses: a housing lens, a transportation and other infrastructure lens, and a climate action lens. In my view, this proposal at this time fails on all these criteria. I believe this rezoning not to be in the best interest of our community when viewed through these lenses. Also, I would emphasize that 64% of the proposal is market condos. I promised in 2018 in my campaign that I would not support projects that were predominantly market, instead favoring social, rental, and affordable. I'm proud of the record of this council in advancing rental, affordable, and social, and I have not voted for more proliferation of market housing at this time. Let us start with the housing lens. This has 64% of the units market. The price of those units will be from 1 bedroom to 3 bedrooms in the range of $500,000 to over $1 million. This will require down payments of $100,000 to $200,000 and incomes approaching $100,000 to well into the $150,000 range. This doesn't address the needs of affordability. It doesn't help the children in my family, for example. It gives us more of what we already have and fails to provide us with the meaningful diversity and housing mix that we require. The 77 market rental, 41 non-market rental, and rent to own do not balance out the fact this is essentially a strata project. Public transportation and infrastructure, the proposal calls for 373 parking stalls in an already busy and congested area of the district. There are no significant upgrades to transportation infrastructure in the immediate future. In addition, what about our plans for schools, medical care, family doctors, and hospitals? I believe that significant population growth of this type should be synchronized with investments in this broader infrastructure. Show me the plan to get these people family doctors, and I'll look more favorably on such increases in population. What about parks, park space, and recreational amenities? I want to comment briefly on the use of the phrase mixed use. We're told this is a mixed use development. The mixes of use are one 574-foot commercial unit and 330 residential units. The balance, if we're going to be specific about the arithmetic, is 574 feet balanced against 310,849 feet. This is a ratio of 1 to 540. It doesn't represent a very balanced mix. And climate lens, I'll use my additional 2 minutes if I may. Climate lens. Earlier in the term of this council, we passed a declaration of climate emergency. At that time, there were many sincere statements about the importance of making climate our priority. Subsequent to that time, we've witnessed heat domes and atmospheric rivers, which highlight the importance of that issue. Indeed, it would indicate to us we were on the right track. We do face a climate emergency. In my view, the construction of a 27-story concrete tower with 373 parking stalls in an already congested area of the district can only be seen as poor climate policy. Concrete high-rises and more cars are not my green vision. The embodied carbon alone in the 27-story concrete tower makes this proposal appalling. Appalling climate policy can only be bad for the climate. For all of these reasons, I'm not supportive of this proposal going to rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next speaker I have is Councillor Bond. Your comments.
Thank you, Mayor Little. And just before I get started my comments, I'm happy to disclose that two individuals, Rahim Fakari and Sarah Fakari, who I've been notified by a member of the public are principals of the Applicant's development company, made contributions in the last local election to the Building Bridges elector organization, which sponsored 4 candidates for council, one of them who was myself, and 1 candidate for mayor. I'm going to be supporting this proposal move forward to public hearing. And I think there's a lot of reasons. One has been mentioned by yourself already, the mayor, that the proposal and the applicant have made and adjusted to the concerns and the questions that have been made by council. And we've seen this actually, I think, twice in an early input hearing, and the applicant has made subsequent changes to the project at both those times to further address the changing desires of council since this project started over 6 years ago. Noting in the report here, our OCP action plan that was passed by council quite recently last year has 8 priority actions. And this project actually addresses 7 of those priority actions. And so if council is looking forward to follow through on the plans that we have passed and the vision that we have set, this project might be a good example to have our consideration. Noting the area, I know that this is probably one of the best places from a climate perspective and land use perspective to be allowing more people to live in our district. It's if people in the district are working downtown or working on the Marine Drive corridor, this location is less than a 10-minute bus ride away from downtown. It's a 15-minute bike ride away from downtown, where a lot of local employment, especially in the district, a lot of people commute to Vancouver for work. And so having more people moving here instead of the alternative, which would be farther afield, say in Langley or Maple Ridge, or even further than that, maybe they're moving to Squamish, as a number of our staff members have, is actually good climate policy. It's better to put more people close to the jobs, even if it's a concrete tower, than to force people to move 50 or 100 kilometers away and drive their cars that far to reach employment. This project has a lot of great merits. I'm not going to go through all of them. That's probably better left for the public hearing. But I think that because it's responded to all of or a number of the council policies that we've set, all the OCP, our local area plan, our OCP action plan, and a number of the suite of plans that we've had, it's definitely worth moving this forward to a public hearing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bond. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I want to thank Councillor Hanson for his very eloquent words, and I agree with every point that he made. You know, part of creating neighborhoods and sustainable neighborhoods, and that's what this OCP was all about, was to be able to, you know, have people, you know, live within a community. And I think Councillor Curran spoke in regards to that a couple of items ago. It astounds me that we are considering a development that is called mixed use when the commercial space, as Councillor Hanson points out, is a mere 600 square feet and is a coffee shop. You know, the entire lower Capilano road at Marine Drive has undergone a complete transformation and has a rec center. I think there's a uniform rental store, and we're just about to get a coffee shop. I'm not sure if that's, you know, I'm not sure that was the vision of the official community plan. You know, the idea that in this place that we're at in regards to real estate and the value of land that has gone up exponentially in the last 10 years, you know, and continues to rise. Certainly the condo market continues to be hot right now. That the economics don't work more in our favor for, you know, the affordable housing that we're trying to achieve in a development such as this. 41 non-market rentals is all we get. Do you know how much lift is on this land since it was purchased? You know, it's incredible to think that the arguments against the ability to accommodate within a pro forma additional, you know, maybe 100 social units, you know, but we only get 41 non-market. Like you got to do the math, people, on this one, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense. The rent-to-own concept is a Habitat for Humanity concept, and if it actually circulated further, Mr. Geller, I hope you're still in the audience listening. I wish you guys would have considered the rent-to-owns to be in you know, continual in perpetuity instead of to one family or one couple. They get the deal, and yet then they get to turn around and sell the unit when they want, and they make the profit. Whereas Habitat for Humanity is a cycle. Today, Kelly Bond, who sat on our affordable housing task force, sent a letter to us. We all got a copy of it. It was done through an FOI. And it was the second letter the districts received, certainly only the second letter I've seen in 26 years. from the Ministry of Transportation in regards to the amount of development the district's undertaking and the state of the roads and access and transportation. I hope that is going to be, I'm requesting that that be addressed during the public hearing, as I assume that this will be moved to hearing. We didn't get the presentation from staff. I don't need it. There'll be another one during the public hearing. But I think it's something that we need to address because the first one that we got was on Emery Place for Mountain Highway. And the ministry had concerns about the traffic then. And I think, and just to enclose Mayor Little, I think Councillor Hanson has raised something that I've raised in the last couple of weeks as well. And I raised it again this evening. On May 19th, there's a group of doctors that are going to be going to Victoria. My doctor, I've had 3 in my lifetime, all in the Seymour. And my doctor has just recently sent letters to half of her patients saying that she can no longer provide the care needed for them. They are overwhelmingly overworked right now, general practitioners. She shared with me today, I was at an appointment, that she is doing between 2 and 3 hours every day of unpaid paperwork. The GPs are a dying breed, unfortunately, because most doctors would like to be specialists. She cannot any longer accommodate her family and accommodate all the patients she took on when she took over this practice from my last doctor. There was also a comment based on the heat dome last year where, we lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people due to heat exhaustion, most of them seniors. And she commented that seniors buildings, and I think the one across the street, Cedar Park, was not equipped with air conditioning. And it's a big concern as we move forward, certainly with these supportive living buildings that we're allowing in the municipality. This climate change and the impacts of the weather are going to, as we all know, get worse. And we need to prepare for that because that is absolutely a massive impact on the medical system. But my doctor, Dr. Andrew Lee, who retired close to 10 years ago, used to always say when I went into for an appointment, he'd say, Lisa, all this development that's going on, who are going to look after all these people? Like, there's just not enough of us to look after them. And we're seeing that right now. There's been news stories, there's been newspaper articles. The GPs are, going to speak to the provincial government. There's just not enough doctors that will care for you on a regular basis. And these small care clinics that are being built, they are not consistent care for patients as they walk in. You get a different doctor every time you come in. They can't do blood work. There's a lot of diagnostics that they can't do, and they're not the solution to everything. So when we bring all these people into a community, we actually have to look after them. We can't just build, housing for them. And a lot of this housing is very unaffordable for most. I mean, this housing that we're considering right now is going to be some of the most lucrative because of the views on the upper floors. And that's why they want the towers, because they are commanding views of Stanley Park and the Strait of Georgia. And they will command the highest values of condos in the district. So, you got to ask yourself, why do we have to do everything at once? Why don't we wait for the build out to occur? It's still not complete. The towers around this building are still not complete. And we've got a lot of issues on our hand, least of all, inflation that's going up and the price of gas at $2.22. Councillor Curran talked about no cars, and I did raise that a couple of councils ago. If we used Mountain Highway as an area not to allow any parking on Lower Mountain Highway in the new Lowerland Town Centre. It was a captive audience because the area is basically landlocked, and it would have actually probably been a success, but it was something council was not interested in looking at. But the question arises that if everyone turned around and got rid of their gas guzzlers at $2.22 a liter and bought an electric car, where are we going to put them? Lower Capilano is not sustainable. Everybody has to get into a car to go shopping. And even if you put a grocery store in there right now, they're going to be the expensive grocery stores. And, inflation is affecting everyone, even those with deep pockets. So I think this is not the appropriate time to move on this one. I think we should wait, and I think we should, let things build out and see how it works out, and then move forward. Rome wasn't created in a day, and the district doesn't have to redevelop everything at once.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to say that I have the same concerns that are mentioned by Councillor Hanson and Councillor Murray, so I won't repeat any of those concerns that they said, but I will add a couple more that popped out at me. The 30% below market doesn't really impress me, because we're trying to get more affordable housing into the district, and that should be 30% of income rather than 30% below market. Market could be sky high, and 30% below is still not going to be affordable to a lot of people. I'm also concerned about the rent to own part of it, because even though there's not that many of them, but you still have to live there 2 years before you can switch to a rent to own. And when you do that, during that first 2 years, you still have to pay market rent and strata fees. So that's a bigger expense than if you just were renting. So it's kind of a bit of a double whammy, if I'm understanding that right. And that doesn't seem to be a very good rent to own plan. And again, Councillor Murray mentioned the in perpetuity idea. Something else that I'm concerned about, or I would like more information on anyway, is that when we get into 2-level parking garages is one thing, but then one of these buildings is going to have a 3rd-level parking. So then I need more information as to the water table and what that means if we're going down 3 levels of parking. Are we going to have water issues because of that in that area? Like everybody else, traffic is a concern of mine, because there's only one road in and one road out. And after this particular development, we're going to have West Vancouver building closer to the on-ramp to the Lionsgate Bridge. And the West Vancouver traffic can only come out into North Vancouver too. So there's still an awful lot of people that are being forecasted to be in this very small area with quite a few towers. The noise that's going to be there for people, I know that the buildings are most of the buildings anyway, have built to combat a noise factor. But I can't help but think, if you want to open up your window, so much for soundproofing, and you're going to have an awful lot amount of noise. Capilano and that section of Marine Drive are one of the busiest, and that intersection is also famous for how many accidents it has. So you're going to get noise, you're going to get dust, you're going to get everything. And I just don't know about how that works out for people. Some people may like that. I wouldn't particularly want that. The other thing is the infrastructure. We are not keeping up with the infrastructure. We're not keeping up with roads. We're not keeping up with repairing what we do have in infrastructure. We're not keeping up with the amount of people we're forecasting coming in for health services, like Councillor Murray mentioned. There's almost 1 million people in BC who don't have a personal doctor. I don't have a personal doctor. I lost mine about 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm one of the many, and the walk-in clinics, as Councillor Murray said, don't cut it because there's no continuity. And if you do get a walk-in doctor that you can go into, oftentimes there's such a long wait. I had a citizen email me the other day and tell me about her mother sat in emergency in Lionsgate Hospital for hours hours. And finally, her mother, an elderly lady, said, I just want to go home. And her daughter took her home because she couldn't wait anymore in emergency. That's what we need to take care of, our basic services. And we need to be looking at affordable, which is what this council was looking for, social affordable housing. And this doesn't cut it in this location. So for all those reasons, I'd like to be able to say I'll let it go and let the neighborhood speak. But I think the neighborhood has already spoken in many ways. That they bring up the same concerns that I'm mentioning. So I'm not in favor of this proposal at this time anyway. Maybe after we see how this all works itself out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Back, your comments?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll keep my comments fairly brief because we are at first reading and this project has been one that we've had a number of opportunities to look at, and I'll be one of the first to admit that while I was supportive of it from the outset, because I think when we're talking about putting this kind of density, this is the kind of location that it should be in for a number of the reasons that were already stated by a couple of my colleagues. Its proximity to transit, and it's a key part of a town center that we're really trying to build out. But what I would say is that this project is a much better project than it was initially. I love how it's evolved, both in terms of the green elements, the affordability, and I think that as it, should it proceed ultimately, I think will become a key part of the greater community down in this part of the district. I think a lot of the issues that are being talked about as reasons to vote against the project like this one are ones that many communities are dealing with, not just the District of North Vancouver. When we're talking about doctor shortages and things like that. These are issues that are being dealt with all across the province. And I think, when we can create homes for people, I know a lot of people that would love to live in a community like this one. And I think with some of the innovative models, first of all, just having more purpose-built rental, the 41 non-market rental homes, I think will provide opportunities for people that just don't exist at all right now on this particular site. So I am supportive of this going to first reading. I do want to hear what the public has to say. It's an important part of this neighborhood. So I'm happy to continue to offer my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Curran, second time.
Thank you. I just wanted to share that I'm happy to share with any members of council a lot of the emergent science that makes it so clear about the critical piece about demand side measures and land use planning as being one of the most effective things we can do to reduce both energy and earth consumption. So it's the consumption-based emissions. We're also working on an embodied carbon policy that we just presented that staff just shared with the Climate Committee. And so I think there is room to improve on that in terms of policies. It's an emergent field. Vancouver has a target of 40% reduced emissions by 2030. And so we're looking at measures around that. And then just in terms of this conversation, which I do think is really important around an economy of care and how we are having society-wide, global-wide challenges around where we have put our priorities. And this is an opportunity to rethink that. And so it is going to have to work in partnership with the province and with other orders of governance to really prioritize funding for the social infrastructure that we value. And I think the pandemic has really shown us that we care, that health is really central to that. So that this issue that members of council have addressed is not unique to us. The targets that we have, they're not our targets that we set necessarily, in terms of being able to accommodate more people. And we're trying to create new 21st century communities, and that we're going through a time that's challenging. But I think I actually imagine what it would feel like to go down Marine Drive and have people, the vision that we had of people out on the sidewalks and being able to move in different ways that's healthier and quieter, and being able to work in different ways and being able to live in different ways. It's a beautiful community that we all get to share. And I think that these challenges are hard. I want to acknowledge that, but complete communities is one of the most effective things we can do. So we'll see what the community has to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Curran. Okay, I see no further speakers from council, so it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Councillors Hanson and Forbes opposed, and I believe, Councillor Muir, you have your camera off, but you were clear in your comments that you're opposed. Thank you very much. So we'll record it as the motion has passed with Councillors Hanson, Forbes, and Muir opposed. Just check in with the clerk. When is this likely to return for a public hearing then? Do you have a date set in mind?
Through your worship, tentatively scheduled for May 31st, but we'll confirm with staff.
Okay, so we're proposing May 31st. That's a tentative date, which means that you have to wait until the agendas are produced leading up to that time to track that and see if that date slips. But at this point, that's the intended targeted time for the public hearing on this matter. Okay, thank you very much, Council. And I think the applicant in the room, it's probably not the number of councillors you really wanted, but you know, the work is ahead of you. It sounded pretty similar to the early input period, I would say, in terms of the response. So thank you very much.